A question that comes up time and time again with our members is, what do I do when my partner, my husband, my wife, my spouse, my cohabitator has different eating habits than I do? So that's what we're going to dive into today: how to master nutrition as a skill when your, let's just call it, partner has different eating habits than you do. Check it out. So today we're going to break this conversation into two parts. I want to start, number one, kind of bigger picture, as I like to do, and then zoom in and get a bit more hands in the dirt logistical with ways to work around this. Now, I want to be clear before we start this conversation. A lot of times when this comes up, it's not that the person in question has an unsupportive partner at home. In the context of what we're going to talk about today, it's no. My spouse is on board for this. And just because I'm changing my habits doesn't necessarily mean they do. So they're eating a certain way, and I find that temptation really hard. How do I still stay successful, keep myself on track when the person at home may be supportive but isn't eating this way? And to me, I'm making that distinction because that's a very different conversation, right? If you have someone at home who's saying things like, I don't know why you're doing this. You're wasting your time. You're wasting your money. You're wasting your energy. To me, that is a very different conversation. That's someone who is on board, 100% supportive, and this isn't for them right now. They're not looking to make a lifestyle change. So they're like, said with love, do you, boo? And I'm going to eat the way that I eat over here. That's who this conversation is for today. So again, I want to start really big picture and have a bigger kind of mindset-y, neuroscience-y conversation, and then we'll get more hands in the dirt and talk about some logistical tools we can put in place. I have a past podcast episode that we refer members back to constantly, and it's called How to Set Boundaries When You're Not So Good at Setting Boundaries. And this conversation is not necessarily a boundary conversation, again, especially if that partner at home is supportive, but I'm relating back to that episode because this is about having open, honest conversations. And spoiler alert, if you haven't listened to that episode, what we talk a lot about is that a lot of women think setting boundaries makes them mean, makes them a bitch, pardon my French. And really, it's one of the most heart-centered things we can do. And I'm going to tie that in here to this conversation. I am a big fan of open, honest communication, especially when we're about to do something differently in our lives. Because if you think about it, let's say I'm just going to call it a husband at home for ease of conversation here, because that's the majority, not everyone that we work with, but that's in the majority. If you have a husband at home and they're used to, we just go out to eat on a whim, right? We do the seafood diet. We see food, we eat it. Maybe my wife shame blames, guilt herself on the other side, but we just kind of eat whatever we want. And then at night we sit down and we snack on whatever we want. And we go to the supermarket and we buy the same things over and over again. Well, it's a pretty fair expectation that your husband or your wife or your partner or whoever doesn't see it coming, that suddenly things are going to change, right? How would they know any differently? Even if they know that you signed up for our Ignite program or whatever program you're doing, even if they know you're doing something differently, how in the world would they know what that entails if we haven't had a conversation about it first? So again, I'm starting this big picture because I think communication is key here. If you've listened to this podcast, you hear me say a lot that I believe one of the keys to happiness is expectation management. So there's no you against them conversation here. There's no butting heads. This could be a very simple, hey, honey, when you've got a couple minutes tonight, I'd love to sit down and just tell you more about this program I'm doing, because I want to talk about what's going to change for me, what might change for you, how we can avoid things changing for you. Like, I just kind of want to game plan and loop you in. Does that sound good to you? Right? We're inviting them into a conversation. It's not, you're not supporting me, or I'm making this change and you're sabotaging me. Like, let's just start with a sit-down conversation. It's not they get home from work and we're bombarding them. It's, hey, honey, when you've got a few minutes, can we talk about this? Right? And then just sit down and tell them what you're doing. You know, I don't know all the details yet. I just started, but they talk a lot about mastering nutrition as a skill. From what I'm told, I'm not going to have to change my shopping list. We can certainly still go out to eat. We can still have, a glass of wine now and then. And for a period of time, I am going to be paying attention to what I eat a lot more than I used to. I'm going to be training my body until I can eat intuitively, which means I'm going to be tracking my food a bit. It's probably going to look weird, might be a little annoying to you at times. I'm not asking you to change anything about your lifestyle. I just want you to understand what I'm doing. Does that make sense? right? I think sometimes reassuring our partners, I'm not asking you to change. This is what I'm doing. Does that make sense? Real quickly, as a former teacher, differentiated learning is real. So if right now you're listening to this episode as a podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcasts, know that it also exists in video form on YouTube. Similarly, if you're watching me right now on YouTube, know that this episode also exists as a podcast on all the platforms. So however you take in information best, know that we've got you. The podcast exists both in podcast form and video form. We'll link both in the show notes below so you can learn however you learn best. Now, let's get back to the episode. And maybe we get a little deeper in the weeds. There might be times at night where I've already used up, we call it spending our macros, kind of like a budget. Maybe I've spent my macros for the day, and that's going to be different because we're used to just kind of snacking mindlessly, which is part of why I'm not feeling so great right now. So I'm going to learn tools. I can definitely still snack at night. I'm just going to plan it in advance. But until I'm there might be days that I'm opting out. And it's not that I don't enjoy our time together. It's not that I don't want that relaxation time. I'm just going to find other things to do while we're watching a movie than mindlessly snacking. And again, there will be nights I still snack with you. I'll pre-plan it. I'm just still getting the flow for this. How does that feel for you? Right? Expectation management. It's not, oh, honey, I can't have snacks with you anymore because I'm on a diet. That's not what we're here to do. Right? There will be plenty. You could choose to fit snacks into your macro plan every single day if you want to, and nothing changes for your partner. Or there may be days you choose to quote unquote spend more of your macros during the day. So we're opting out. It's not going to feel as blindsiding if we've communicated this up front. Now, again, of course, this is not a script that I encourage you to write down and read to your partner. The point is open, honest communication, right? Clarity, expectation management, checking in. How does that feel for you? What questions can I answer? These are all things that are going to help your partner support you without it feeling like we're butting heads, going head to head on this. The second part to this conversation is a bit more logistical, and this is going to completely depend on your personality, on your willpower. If you know me, you know I am not a fan of living off willpower. Sometimes people see a woman with muscles and they're like, you have so much willpower. And I'm like, if you ever saw me in front of a box of Krispy Kreme donuts, you would not say that. This does not happen from willpower. This happens through habit. So I say all that to say there is no one-size-fits-all logistical tool here. And in all my years of doing this, I have picked up a tool bag that's helped me. I'll tell you some personal example from my past. Years and years ago, I used to live with someone. I was practically a kid, not literally a kid, but I was in my very, very early 20s. And I used to live with someone who was the healthiest uneater I've ever met in my life, like bacon and fast food and all the things that I personally do not enjoy. So I wasn't going to ask them to change, right? I didn't love it, and we would talk about it from time to time, but that was up to them to change or not. But for me, what I felt like I needed was a whole separate cabinet. I literally just took 2 cabinets in the kitchen, and that was my snack cabinet. What that did for me mentally is I just never opened up the cabinet because there were snacks in there that were tempting to me. Like, I don't love bacon and fast food, but I do love Oreos now and then and other foods that I don't want to mindlessly snack on. If I'm going to have them, I want to be intentional about fitting them into my macros. So what I didn't want to happen is that I would come home from a long day of teaching, be hangry, open a cabinet, see some Oreos, start stuffing my face, and then the shame, blame, guilt kicked in. So I just took 2 cabinets to myself, deemed them my snack cabinet, had the open, honest conversation of, hey, are you cool if these are mine? And you can have the rest of the kitchen, but these are mine. And that was it. In my mind, I created a mental separation that these were my spots. You can do that with the fridge. Have a shelf to yourself. Again, these 2 conversations tie into each other because what we're not going to do is go to war. We're not going to say, this is my shelf, don't touch my shelf, right? But hey, honey, I'm finding, I don't want to put any of this on you. This is my journey, and I'm finding that some of your foods are really tempting to me. Make a joke of it, like my willpower's not as great as I thought it was. Some of these foods are really tempting. I'm not going to ask you to stop buying them. That's not fair to you. And what I think would help me, I'm going to do it as an experiment if you're open to it, is just some mental separation. How would you feel? And I know this sounds kind of silly, but I just want to try it out. What if I had a shelf in the fridge and like 1 or 2 cabinets in the kitchen that were just my snack shelves? And you're welcome to them. It's more just for my own temptation purposes. How does that sound to you? right? Open, honest communication, putting some separation if that feels good for you. Last kind of logistical piece, again, ties into the first part of this conversation. I am someone who loves to snack. I love when it's been a long day. I worked all day. I went to the gym. I took care of the puppies. We had dinner. And now it's like, we finally get, lately it's been 10 minutes, but in the past it was maybe 45 or an hour to just sit on the couch as a family, snuggle the puppies, unwind after a long day. And I love to include snacks in that moment. So we can plan ahead, especially if you and your partner, spouse, whoever that is, are in a habit of mindlessly snacking at the end of the day. What we don't have to do is take that routine away. We're just going to tweak it a little bit. One of the beauties of macros is you can still have those snack foods. We're just going to pre-plan for them. So in the morning, if I know at the end of the day, I want to have some pretzels, a little bit of popcorn, and a glass of wine, right? Maybe I'm having a glass of wine that day. I'm going to pre-plan it in the morning before my day's even started. So it's like those macros have quote unquote already been spent. So at the end of the day, guess what? I could still have an open, honest conversation if I want, or my partner's none the wiser because I'm still sitting there snacking. I've just pre-planned it, maybe pre-portioned it. I personally would still have the conversation because I think it's important for them to be in the loop. But the point is, the habit hasn't changed. We've just added some guardrails around it. So if I had to bullet point this episode, absolute number one, open, honest conversation. What I've seen in all my years of doing this is where things go awry is when we don't have clear expectations, when we expect our partner to just follow suit, no questions asked, and then it turns into a battleground. That can easily be avoided. Again, assuming you have a supportive partner at home. They want to see you happy. They want to see you feeling good in your body. They want to see you succeed. So it's our job to step into a place of a little bit of vulnerability and have a conversation. Like, these are my fears for what's going on. Here's what I'm guessing. I don't know yet, but I'm guessing would best support me as I go. And I'll keep you posted as we keep going. But I don't want you to be in the dark. I don't want you to feel like I'm forcing anything upon you. I want us to come about this as a team and a family so that we're all set up for success and this process is enjoyable. And then second bullet point, if we dig a little deeper, is we can get a bit more logistical with it. We can have separate cabinets. We can have separate shelves in the fridge. And we can pre-plan and pre-portion snacks at the end of the day. Again, open, honest communication, whether we're talking about big picture or whether we're talking about logistical. The more we can be on the same page, the more successful we're going to be.